I want to ask you some NFL at large questions. This should interest Niner fans because Robert Saleh is in the coaching carousel. There's 8 openings. The Giants hired John Harbaugh this morning. There's a few more openings since we talked last. What do you think? Who do you think Pittsburgh might be targeting?
You know, you look at the Steelers now, their history has been Chuck Noll, defensive coordinator for Sid Gilman back in the old days with the LA Chargers, the San Diego Chargers, then a successful NFL coach, defensive guy. Cowher, defensive guy. Tomlin, defensive guy. So, predicated upon that string, when they go to hire their 4th head coach in 57 years, I would look for someone like Chris Shula, Don's grandson, young, because see now Pittsburgh has always hired a head coach in his young 30s, 32, 33 years of age. Tomlin just stepped down and he's 53. He was there 19 years. So he got the head job when he was 32. Chuck Noll was young. Cowher was young. Shula's young. And the Steelers have a history of staying with a guy for an extended period of time. And so I would look for someone like Shula, who has the pedigree plus the age factor, where the Rooney family is going to look at him as their answer. And then obviously Chris would have to bring in an offensive coordinator. And then the big question for Pittsburgh now is, what do they do for quarterback? You know, it's not Mason Rudolph. That is not the answer. So
Chris Shula. That's a good one. I haven't heard that one associated with the Steelers yet. That makes perfect sense. I don't think it'll be Robert Saleh. To your point, they're always hiring someone who's like 32, 33 and hasn't been a head coach yet. Chuck Noll wasn't on his second team. Cowher wasn't on his second team. Okay, I like that one. What about Baltimore?
You know, Bisciotti's a weird duck. I know they need to fix their defense. Yep. So I can see them going after Minter down in Los Angeles with the Chargers. Would probably be their first bet. And then they will bring in somebody offensively who can work with Lamar Jackson. You know, they got to redo his contract. He'll probably end up with another average around $60 million, counting new money and all that kind of stuff. He's his own agent. So that's kind of messed things up previously with the negotiating. And so I would look for them to hire a defensive head coach and then bring in a coordinator who can work with the. Now, here's the other thing. Lamar Jackson's legs are not as good as they were 2, 3, 4 years ago. He's had hamstring injuries and all that. So he's at that point in his career like a Michael Vick, where your legs start to go. Randall Cunningham was the same way with the Eagles in the old days. And then those guys eventually begin to master more of the intricacies about making correct reads and progressions in the passing game. And their passing skills actually improve a little bit as they get older because they know they have to focus on them more than they did.
Yeah, Michael Vick's best years were with Andy Reid, not when he was young.
Correct. And they became better at playing quarterback rather than playing athlete. And see, that's the big difference. So I could see someone like Kingsbury, who's been used to the spread packages and athletic quarterbacks, also in Arizona as well as in Washington with the Commanders. I could see him, if he doesn't get a head job, which I don't think he will, could be an offensive coordinator with Lamar Jackson.
That makes sense. Okay. How about Tennessee? They got a quarterback.
They do. They are next to the Raiders. They were like, the most chaotic. Of course, the Jets and the Giants were givens last year for scrambling franchises. But I still think the former Cleveland head coach Stefanski could show up down in Tennessee. Offensive guy.
Yeah.
He's got some
Yeah.
defensive coordinators in his history. Jim Schwartz is fabulous. I don't think Jim will get the Cleveland job as a head coach.
Who do you think
And,
will?
you know, Haslam, the owner, the pilot Flying J guy, talk about, people talk about different organizations and they use the term dysfunctional. That's Haslam. That's Cleveland. You look at the contract they gave to Deshaun Watson, and they have wiped out the franchise for 4 or 5 years with that deal. And Haslam still says that they're not a dysfunctional organization. And he won't even admit that they butchered that guaranteed contract. And, he's one of those kind of guys where you're not too excited about working for the guy.
Yeah. And as long as that contract's on the books, what are the expectations? I mean, you're probably not going to win and you're going to be held responsible. And then when the contract does come off the books, maybe they fire you and get someone else.
Well, the other thing, think of all the dead money that you have because you're not getting Deshaun Watson on the field. So that is basically a wasted contract that's eating up your salary cap. That's not allowing you to go out and find more talent and more players for you, either offensively or defensively. And, the guy's over on the sideline eating sunflower seeds and drinking a soda and collecting a check for what, $56, $58 million a year.
Yeah. So some poor soul is going to end up with this job. What about Arizona?
Oh, the big question I have with Arizona is what are they going to do at quarterback? Kyler Murray has kind of his expiration date.
It's over with. Yeah.
I'm sorry.
It's over with.
It's over. So now they've got to figure out how they're going to resolve that. Where are they going to go with that?
So you got no quarterback. It's the toughest division in football. And the owners are kind of cheap.
Oh, the Bidwells they've always been cheap. That's been their history. You go back to the Gene Stallings days and all of those. I mean, they have been, they're rubbing 2 nickels together and trying to make them a dime. And so I don't know that question, they've got to answer that. I could see them going with an offensive guy and going out in free agency and trying to bring in a quarterback. The other thing that's going to really put a crimp in a lot of people this year with the draft and with the quarterback, the scarcity of quarterbacks coming out in this year's draft.
Everyone's staying in school.
Well, you know why? When you're making
you can make more money.
Yeah, when you're making $6 million to play 11, 12, or 13 ball games, and
be the king of the campus. Absolutely. You think the Raiders get Flores?
I know he's buddies with this guy Brady, but that is not a 1 or 2 year fix to be the head coach in that organization. Mm-mm. So I'd say I want a 5-year guaranteed contract where
maybe 6.
Forget the 2-year deal, forget the 3-year deal. I want 5 because this is going to take a good 3 before I get to 500, let alone get a chance to even think about the playoffs, especially being in the AFC West. So I don't know if he would want to take on that
such a project.
And as his, when, there are other opportunities in the league, I still look at the Atlanta Falcons as the best place for Saleh, but, I don't know. I can't see Saleh going to Arizona.
No, but Atlanta's, I like it. I mean, you don't have a quarterback, but you do have a very talented roster in the worst division in football. And maybe you feel like you could get Mac Jones or you could maybe just stick with Kirk Cousins. I mean, really? Yeah, Kirk Cousins isn't terrible.
Not only that, you still got Penix, and you hope that you can get him rehab physically.
Right.
He's been a wounded warrior since he was in college and even back in high school with ACLs and everything. So the guy has never been, quote unquote, healthy other than that one season at Washington in college when he had that breakout year. But every other year since then, and even prior to that, he's always been injured and surgically on the mend.